For 15 years, my life had been tied to that office, the company I once proudly called my second home. I had given it everything, my time, my energy, my ideas, my loyalty. I worked weekends when others were celebrating, stayed late nights when others were with their families, and traveled across states when my children wished I was home. Every ounce of my being had gone into building that company's success. In those years, I saw colleagues come and go. I saw failures turn into successes, and I saw a small firm grow into a leading name in the industry. And I had been at the center of it all, pushing it forward with relentless determination. I remember the first day I joined. I was just 30, full of ambition and drive. The office was small back then, just 2 rooms and a handful of employees. The boss, Mr. Richard, had a dream, and I believed in it. I gave him my trust, and in return, he gave me a chance. I became more than just an employee. I became the man who managed his clients, his projects, and even his personal troubles. People inside and outside the company started recognizing me as the face of the firm. I was proud of that. Proud that I was making a difference. The sacrifices I made were countless. I missed birthdays, anniversaries, school plays. My wife often told me, "Jacob, you're giving too much to a job that doesn't care about you." I would smile and say, "This company is my family too." She would shake her head, but she stayed silent, supporting me despite her worries. For years, I believed loyalty would always be rewarded. I believed hard work could never go unnoticed. I was wrong. The day it all shattered was ordinary, at first. I walked into the office at 9 a.m. sharp, like I had done for 15 years. People greeted me with respect. Some even looked at me like I was their mentor. I carried myself with confidence because I knew I had earned my place. That morning, I had just closed a deal worth millions, one that could secure the company's future for years to come. I was proud, excited to share the news with Richard, my boss. But when I entered his office, the look on his face was not of celebration. It was cold, calculating. He asked me to sit, his voice distant. Then he said words that still echo in my head. "Jacob, you've been great for this company, but you're too expensive. We need to cut costs, and unfortunately, we can't afford you anymore. You're fired." At first, I thought it was a cruel joke. I laughed nervously and said, "Come on, Richard, after everything I've done for this place, after the deal I just brought in." But he didn't smile. He didn't even look me in the eye. He just slid a termination letter across the table. In that moment, my world collapsed. 15 years of loyalty erased in 15 seconds. No warning, no gratitude, no respect, just a cold dismissal. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hand shook as I picked up the paper. Fired, just like that. I wanted to shout, to scream, to demand an explanation, but my voice wouldn't come. I sat there, staring at the man I had once trusted like family, and realized he saw me as nothing more than a number on a balance sheet. Walking out of that office was the hardest thing I'd ever done. My colleagues looked at me in shock. Some whispered, others avoided my gaze. No one dared to stand up for me. I had been their leader, their mentor, yet in that moment, I was invisible. When I reached home that evening, I couldn't even face my wife. She looked at me and knew something was wrong. I broke down, something I had never done before. I told her everything, how Richard betrayed me, how my loyalty had been thrown away like garbage. She held me as I cried, whispering, "I told you they never deserved you." But her words, though true, didn't ease the pain. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the past 15 years. Every sacrifice, every achievement, every smile I had faked when I was exhausted. And now, it all meant nothing. But as I lay there, the pain slowly started turning into something else. A fire, a resolve. If Richard thought he could break me, he was wrong. If he thought he could erase me, he underestimated me. I was not just a discarded employee. I was Jacob, and I would make him regret the day he betrayed me. The first weeks after being fired were the darkest of my life. I woke up each morning out of habit, dressed in my work clothes, and stood at the door with my briefcase before realizing there was nowhere to go. The silence in the house mocked me. My wife tried to comfort me, but I could see the concern in her eyes. Bills were piling up, my savings were thinning, and my pride, the pride I once carried like armor, was crumbling. Everywhere I went, people asked questions I didn't want to answer. Neighbors would stop me on the street. "Jacob, why aren't you at the office?" Old colleagues, the ones who once admired me, avoided eye contact as if I carried a disease. Those who dared to speak only whispered, "We're so sorry for what happened." But, Richard had no choice. Business is business. Business. That word cut me deeper than any blade. Was my life's dedication nothing more than business? The hardest part was facing my children. They looked up to me, believed I was a strong man, a man who could conquer anything. But now they saw me sitting at the table, jobless, defeated. My daughter once asked, "Dad, why did they let you go if you worked so hard?" I couldn't answer. How could I explain betrayal to a child? Depression consumed me. I stopped shaving, stopped smiling. I would sit for hours, staring at the wall, reliving Richard's words, "You're too expensive." That sentence played like a broken record in my mind. 15 years reduced to a single insult. But pain is a strange teacher. It breaks you down, but it also reshapes you. One night, as I sat in the dark, I realized something important. Richard didn't just fire me, he freed me. For 15 years, I had built his empire. I knew its foundations, its weaknesses, its secrets. He thought discarding me would erase me. He forgot that I was the one who held the strings. And now, without me, he was exposed. I started small. I took freelance projects, consulting work. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept food on the table. Each client I worked with reminded me that I still had value, that I was still Jacob. Slowly, I built connections, gained trust, and rebuilt my reputation outside Richard's shadow. Meanwhile, I kept an eye on Richard's company. From the outside, it still looked strong, but I knew better. Without me, cracks would appear, and they did. Deadlines were missed, clients left dissatisfied, and rumors spread about poor management. I heard whispers that Richard was struggling to keep control. It brought me a small sense of satisfaction, but not enough. One day, I ran into an old colleague at a cafe. He leaned close and said, "Jacob, it's not the same without you. Richard's making bad decisions. People are leaving." My heart raced. The empire I built was crumbling. Richard was to blame. That was when I made my decision. I wouldn't just watch him fail. I would be the reason he failed. He had taken everything from me, my job, my pride, my peace. Now it was my turn. I began contacting former clients discreetly. I reminded them of the work I had done, the results I had delivered. Many were eager to leave Richard's failing company and join me. Slowly, I built my own firm, small at first, but strong in reputation. I didn't advertise loudly. I worked in the shadows, letting word of mouth spread at home. My wife noticed the change in me. The despair in my eyes was replaced by determination. She asked once, "Jacob, are you planning something?" I smiled and said, "I'm just making sure Richard learns what it means to betray loyalty." Years passed, and my new company grew. Meanwhile, Richard's empire shrank. He tried everything, hiring new managers, cutting costs, chasing desperate deals, but nothing worked. He didn't realize that the very foundation he stood on was the one I had built, and without me, it was collapsing. But this was just the beginning. I didn't want him to simply lose clients or money. I wanted him to feel the same humiliation, the same despair, the same emptiness he had forced upon me. Revenge wasn't just about winning, it was about making him remember Jacob every single day of his downfall. Richard thought he had buried me. He thought firing me would end my story, but in truth, it was only the beginning. By the third year after my dismissal, my new company was no longer just surviving, it was thriving. What began as freelance consulting had evolved into a legitimate firm with a loyal team. We were small, yes, but we were agile, efficient, and most importantly, trusted by clients who valued results over empty promises. I learned quickly that people had never been loyal to Richard. They were loyal to me. They remembered how I had treated them, how I had solved problems no one else could, how I had built bridges instead of walls. Slowly but surely, they drifted away from him and toward me. Every contract I signed felt like a piece of my stolen dignity being returned, but still, I wasn't satisfied. Revenge is not a single strike, it is a process, and I wanted Richard to experience not just professional loss, but the personal collapse that comes with it. It came during a major bidding war for a contract that Richard desperately needed to save his sinking company. The client was an international investor looking to expand into the American market. I knew Richard would pursue them with everything he had, so I made my move first. I studied the investor's needs, identified their pain points, and crafted a flawless proposal. I poured every ounce of experience, every lesson I had learned in those 15 years, into that pitch. When the investor finally chose, it wasn't even close. They picked my firm. I'll never forget the look on Richard's face when he saw me at the signing event. He froze, his smile faltered, and for a moment I saw fear in his eyes. He realized then that I wasn't gone. I wasn't defeated. I was standing right in front of him, stronger than ever. I leaned close and whispered, "You fired me because I was too expensive. Let's see how costly your mistake really is." After that, things accelerated. Richard's employees, demoralized and overworked, began reaching out to me. They wanted to join a company where their skills were valued, not exploited. I welcomed them with open arms. One by one, his best people left, until only the desperate and inexperienced remained. Clients followed. Suppliers shifted their loyalties. Partnerships collapsed. It was like watching a once mighty castle rot from the inside, its walls crumbling stone by stone. Richard tried to fight back. He slashed prices, promised impossible deadlines, even spread rumors about me, but nothing worked. His desperation was obvious, and in business, desperation smells like blood in the water. One evening, I received a call. Richard wanted to meet. We sat across from each other in a quiet restaurant. His once proud shoulders were hunched, his expensive suit wrinkled, his face pale. He forced a smile, but I could see the tremor in his hands. "Jacob," he said, his voice strained, "we don't need to fight. We can work together again, join forces. We were always stronger as a team." For a moment, I almost laughed. This was the same man who had thrown me out like trash, who had told me I was too expensive, and now he was begging. I leaned back, calm and steady. "Richard, you didn't fire me because of costs. You fired me because you were afraid. Afraid that I was stronger than you. And now, here we are, Rue, begging me for help." His eyes darkened. "You'll regret this, Jacob. You think you've won, but you don't know what I'm capable of." I stood up, dropped a few bills on the table for the coffee, and said, "I already know what you're capable of. That's why you're losing." After that meeting, I realized Richard still had one weapon left, his pride, and pride, when wounded, becomes a dangerous enemy. But I wasn't afraid. I had already endured the worst humiliation, despair, and betrayal. What else could he possibly do? Instead of fighting him directly, I began tightening the noose. I made sure his company lost not just clients, but credibility. I exposed flaws in his operations, revealed his broken promises, and let the industry see his true face. By the 7th year after my firing, his company was on the verge of collapse. Debt collectors circled. Former allies abandoned him. Employees cursed his name. And yet, he still clung to the illusion of control. But I wasn't done. My revenge wasn't complete. I didn't just want him to lose his company. I wanted him to lose the very identity he had stolen from me. 10 years. That's how long it had been since Richard pushed me out of the company I had built with my sweat, my vision, and my loyalty. 10 years since he told me I was too expensive. But in those years, the tables had turned. My company had grown into a respected leader in the industry. We had offices in multiple states, a team that trusted me, and clients who knew that when Jacob promised results, he delivered. My name, once dragged through the dirt by Richard's whispers, now carried weight again. Richard, on the other hand, was a ghost of his former self. The final act began with one opportunity. A government-backed mega-project was being announced. Millions, enough to resurrect any company lucky enough to win the bid. Everyone knew it was the contract of the decade. Richard's failing company needed it like a drowning man needs air. He scraped together his last resources, mortgaged what little he had left, and pulled strings to be considered. I was also in the race, but unlike Richard, I didn't need this project to survive. For me, it was about principle. It was about showing him, once and for all, that he had destroyed himself by underestimating me. The bidding day arrived. The hall was filled with competitors, investors, and officials. When I entered, heads turned not because I was flashy, but because my presence commanded respect now. Years of perseverance had etched strength into my face, calmness into my walk. Then I saw Richard. He was wearing the same kind of expensive suit he always wore, but it hung loosely on his frail frame. His hair was grayer, his eyes darker, his smile forced. He tried to act confident, but his trembling hands betrayed him. We stood, face to face before the presentations. He gave me a bitter smile. "This is mine, Jacob," he whispered. "You can take everything else, but not this. I won't let you." I leaned close and replied, "You already lost, Richard. You just don't know it yet." The crushing defeat. It came time to present. Richard's pitch was full of desperation. His promises were unrealistic, his numbers inflated. Everyone in the room could sense it. Then it was my turn. I didn't just present a proposal. I told a story of efficiency, sustainability, trust. I showcased results, evidence, and testimonials from past projects. I didn't try to dazzle them with empty words. I simply let the truth speak. When the judges announced the winner, it was unanimous. The contract went to me. Richard's face drained of color. His last chance, his final lifeline, had been cut before his eyes. The collapse after that day, his downfall, was rapid. Creditors seized what little he owned. Former allies refused to return his calls. His house was repossessed, his cars sold off, his reputation beyond repair. One rainy evening, I passed by a bus station on my way home, and there he was. Richard, sitting on the cold pavement, wearing shabby clothes, a paper cup in his hand. His once proud shoulders were slumped, his eyes hollow, his hands shaking as he begged for spare change from strangers who didn't even recognize him. I stopped for a moment. Watching, he looked up, and our eyes met. For a second, recognition flickered in his gaze, followed by shame. I walked closer, pulled a single bill from my wallet, and dropped it into his cup. "Too expensive, remember?" I whispered. "Now you know the real cost." He lowered his head, silent, broken. As I walked away, I felt no joy in his misery. Revenge hadn't made me laugh or cheer, but it had given me closure. Richard had taken everything from me, once my job, my dignity, my years of loyalty, and I had rebuilt piece by piece until I was stronger than he could ever imagine. His downfall wasn't my victory, my survival was, and that survival, that rise, was the greatest revenge of all.